Dc43, Port of Pleasures. Soul-touching and life-enhancing stories. Port of Pleasures. Once upon a time, I lived in Kandu's ocean of love, the realm of everlasting life, an ocean that had no beginning and no end, nothing below and nothing above, and also no shores. It all just was ocean. Kandu was the life creator and the life sustainer of all, and this ocean was of indescribable beauty and vibrated only peace, love and happiness. This ocean was filled with drops, and I was one of them, designed in the shape of a transparent, beautiful little underwater sailing boat, in order to move about in this love as we pleased. We had all the time in the world because time didn't exist here. Time was forever. I heard, however, from my sisters and brothers who enjoyed their voyages and adventures in Kandu's love, that inside the ocean a vortex had created itself, and within itself currents, that existed out of eternal light and eternal sound. Seemingly these currents inside the vortex had created a new world, called Crystallia the Creation, and many new worlds within it, ready to be explored. With my boat and navigation system called Mindrex, which I received immediately after I left sailing through the vortex, on and in this luminous channel of currents of eternal light and sound, I went on an adventure to explore Crystallia the Creation. I first entered and sailed into the mystical oceanic realm of Causalia, also called the Upper Crystal Kingdom. Here I did my training in the preparation realm, with its vast oceans made out of liquid crystals. Being there, this device gave me an indication of what to keep in mind while visiting these new worlds, because this new world was created with opposites, changed constantly, and in which everything was bound to time. It was fascinating to experiencing time, which didn't exist in the ocean of love. But time in Causalia was very slow, and things could last and take forever. And inside of me I was seeking a faster world in which everything could happen instantly. In addition, there were other laws, aspects, elements and structures which we didn't have in the ocean of love. One particular law stood out, as it was the law of cause and effect, meaning that everything what I would think of, say and do would have a reaction. By the way, it was Causalia that received its name from this law, and this realm was the blueprint of all other realms that I would be exploring and visiting. This was the law of cause and effect, and I would be meeting the divinities representing all these laws and elements at a later date. I found out about Kalimabanco, the governor of Crystallia, the creation, the creator and supplier of that navigation device. His task, or its task, was to offer us endless adventures and new things to do and see. And all of this was stored in my navigation device that was given by him to anyone visiting Crystallia the Creation. By having this device, I could imagine anything I wanted, but it also recorded everything I was thinking of and doing. I was, however, still somewhat frustrated, as even the creating of things could take a long time, for time went very slow in Causalia. My boat, which was me when I left, had gone through a transition, and we had become two different entities. It was now me and my boat. Both of us had become of a more tangible substance, and which I could create, play and adventure with and through, because that power was now available to me. I changed myself and my boat into something magical looking, a mixture between a flying sailing ship and eagle made from transparent liquid crystals, and I explored the endless beauties of the realm. From other sailors that I passed and talked with, I got to know about the port of pleasures, in the realm of the physical man, and which called to me, and I made it into my final destination. Life in the port of pleasures was about doing it all, having it all, and all more or less instantly, as it was told to me. In this realm time was incredible fast, and this was what I longed for. I traveled endlessly and never got tempted to permanently dock in one of the many harbors, but here and there I threw my anchor out, went ashore and ventured many new lands and saw the strangest creatures and had many adventures. I'm talking about tempted because there were worlds and realms with thousands of suns and moons that were so beautiful that I could feel also that danger of falling into a spell by staying there. So I kept on sailing. After traveling for a long time, I sailed through Orania, another special ocean and realm, and I noticed that me, myself, and my boat had become even more tangible, and upgraded both of us with the new substances, and kept sailing and trying to find the port of pleasures. Orania was the lower crystal kingdom, and everything regarding the elements of creation and universal laws became clearer when I saw the high realms of the gods, in which the gods that represented these laws were fighting with each other. Time here went a little faster than in Causalia, but for me it was still boring. Things took too long. During my voyage, passing through the plain of dreams and the castles of garments, I picked up an even more visible body, and started to get more and more connected with my new sailboat. And in addition, I got completely absorbed with the navigation system and got possessed with my dream. I wanted to be in the port of pleasures. I had now taken a mythical body and was a mixture between a body of the gods of universe and nature, neither man or woman, and a fairy tale angel. I had enormous wings on my back and also wrists and ankle wings. For your imaginary understanding, you might want to look into one or more of the different ancient Greek gods. I thought about myself being more a flying mythological boat. The sails were my wings. I played God as well and was able to sail fly through the skies, through Orania, anywhere I wanted. I completely identified with what I had created of myself and thought I could do anything I wanted. And this was actually true, as everything was granted I desired and wished for. However, again, it took all too long in my opinion. Just for you to know, you and even me always think that Kandu granted all these wishes and desires. But actually it is Kalimabanko, for he has the duty to keep us busy in Crystallia the creation. We don't live in Kandu's will, but our own will, which is Kalimubanko and Mindrex, the mind within us, our navigation device, and universal information center, all in one. When we would live in Kandu's will, we would not ask for anything, for he knows what is best for us. By just being involved with all that was created, and without realizing this, I had lost my contact with the ocean of love and Kandu, but also had forgotten my previous adventures. The worlds in Orania were more tangible than the worlds I had seen in Causalia, and I was very curious to see and experience even more tangible and physical things, and of course, a world faster in time. I threw my anchor out many times to explore many realms and lands, but kept my dream in focus, which which was not easy at times, especially when you seek some peace and time to rest, but at the same time being chased by space pirates, ghosts, gods, and demons. Although staying focused on wanting to end up at the Port of Pleasures, during all these travels I added more dreams and images to my original dream. In addition, seeing all this incredible beauty, I also saw the incredible wrong what was going on. I was now in the realm of opposites and having to deal with that as well. I had seen gods fighting with another. I had seen wars that were started in the name of Kandu, the only real god and creator. I had seen crime and piracy, and seen everybody doing what they wanted and being very destructive. And I thought of my end destination, that special place that would be ruled by strong physical men, whatever they would be and look like. In my imagination, they would be keeping everybody under their control so individuals would not be able to do the wrong things I had seen. It was during a very severe storm in which I really thought that I would be losing my life, my flying boat and my dream, a moment of silence entered, and I must have ended up in the eye of the storm, that an unusual mist showed up out of nowhere. It was like a curtain, but at the same time an upside-down screen, which looked like a whirlpool or vortex. But inside, I could sense the realm of the physical man, and I knew there was the Port of Pleasures. I intuitively knew that this was a door, an entrance. I had almost no time to make decisions, and seconds later, I was saved from being in a dangerous storm, and had ended up in a very quiet ocean, which was called the womb or inner ocean of a woman. And after 9 months, I sailed in and with my new body through a canal, which was called the Birth Canal, into the harbor of the realm of physical man. My boat was now called a human body, and my navigation device was referred to as the mind. But let me visualize my new boat to you, which was much later in my life explained to me. This boat was hidden inside in the human fleshy body. The keel of my boat was the bony structure inside the hips and called the sacrum, and was shaped like an upside-down pyramid, but as well looking like a boat. This was the symbolic boat in which I would be sailing through the challenges in the ocean of this dense physical creation. The spine was located on top of the boat and representing the mast of my sailing boat. On the deck was the wheel that would be managed by me. The shoulders with the shoulder blades were my new wings that also looked like an upside-down pyramid, and imagine them being my sails. Further up was the crow's nest located in the skull, being a small pyramid, also called the cranium. Without realizing this, and that at that time, I would be sailing in and through the adventures of my life with this boat. In this realm, and like any time before when I had entered the new dimension, world or realm, I lost conscious memory of all that happened before. Anyway, I was glad and thought this was my final destination, because I was tired of traveling and I had wanted to settle down, and it felt as if I had docked my boat here permanently. At least, that's what I thought at that time. Everybody around me was so happy with my arrival, and even the leaders of the realm of physical man were happy. Later I found out that they even put money, a lot of money, in a central bank that would support me during my life, which at that time I thought would be forever. Up till that moment, before entering the realm of man, I had been doing everything myself, but because my new condition I felt that almost everything was done for me. I didn't need to fix anything myself anymore, and even food and drinks and other care was provided. What a world, I thought. I received a name, and shortly after, a certificate that showed proof of my arrival, and it was called my birth certificate, which made me legal, and this document got enhanced with another proof that I had arrived in the port of physical existence and able to explore other lands, to pass the port, and which was called a passport. It was all very unusual, as I also never had a name or any documents, but all of this was seemingly how things were done in that world. Finally, I thought, I had become real, and I had a home with people who took care of me, and leaders of my new country who would protect and take care of me. Shortly after I was born, I saw my parents very happy because I received some injections which they called immunization, possibly protecting me for strange diseases. I couldn't figure this completely out, plus I had no way to refuse at such a young age, but I was sick for days and I felt as if a part of the juice of life had been taken out of me. Soon I forgot about it, but faced something else I had never expected. I didn't see my parents too much, because both of them had to work to pay the bills. I thought for a while that I was the cause of all of this, because they had loaned money from the bank to have our house, a car, and they had to pay monthly for those loans, and in addition, tax, insurance, electricity, water, food, and many other things. After the time, my nanny disappeared out of my life, who even felt more mother than my real mother. I was set up at a school that would take care of my education. And while going through the first years of my adventures on the planet called Earthania, the initial feeling of being cared for started to change drastically, for I was to become the one in charge of everything. I had to learn basic skills to live in this realm, and learned endless programs and rules. Rules at homes, at school, in the community, and many more. These rules were seemingly for my own good and for the good of others, but although I tried to stick to these rules, I got many times in trouble by forgetting. I felt restricted and walking on eggshells. There was always something that somebody had an opinion about on how things should be and how one should behave. During my training that started really early to prepare myself learning all these programs in order to be a specialist and professional, I was also trained in comparing and competing. At school it was about grades, at sports it was about winning, and amongst my friends it was about who had the latest toys and gadgets, and not to forget how you looked. I didn't have it easy with accepting my teachers in my life because most of them came from an authority, making me inadequate, and they pretending that they knew it all. It reminded me intuitively about the higher realms of the God, and me this time rebelling even more. In addition, I struggled to fit in with others and tried all kinds of ways to feel part of something by participating in a group connected to sports, creativity, music, and even religion. But every evening, laying in my bed, I felt alone and lonely, and the thoughts of having a partner and my own family and even my own business became in silence an obsession, because that in my mind and being successful would take care of all that confusion and loneliness. At least that is what I thought. During these last years of schooling, the pressure became too much, and I tried to escape in many ways by becoming a game player and TV addict, alcohol, cigarettes, coffee, and mild drugs, and they all started to slip in. My poor eating habits in regards to consuming unhealthy foods I had not even considered as an addiction. And when life all became about working and without realizing, I had become part of a consumer society. At that time, I didn't realize that I was consuming the well-being of myself, my body, both others and the world. Many times I had fallen ill, and the doctor visits were high, and the medications that I thought would take care of this seemed not to work, because I became weaker and weaker and plagued with all kinds of things. When I got sick, I couldn't understand why I received all these delays, because that's how I interpret them all, and I always wanted to get back on my feet as soon as possible by any means, in order to continue my professional career and my life. Just before I wanted to start my professional career, I was drafted in the army as a soldier, and there and then I realized that I had sold myself to that reality. After the initial training of learning how to kill in the name of my country and Kandu, the war which had been planned got on hold, and I had plenty of time to think and to figure things out. After my time in the army, I ran into many other individuals who had figured out the same things in regarding how we had sold ourselves without even knowing. Is it not that a soldier sells himself to some ideology, or another confused something or somebody? These individuals all had similar stories in which a break or wake-up call had taken place in their life, either through sickness, facing death, becoming bankrupt and being disappointed with their religion they were following, or by doing lots of study and research. I was very upset to see my world driven by money and power-hungry individuals, and on top, I did my part by researching and seeing how the elite, in trying to gain wealth and power, politics and religion, worked hand in hand to disempower individuals and to make slaves, soldiers, workers, and consumers out of them. Everybody needed to be in their service and be in debt to them, and by that they had all the control over the money going in and out. After they had everybody in debt and totally dependent, they produced poor food and everybody totally dependent on medications and care, and got individuals to pay in fear for insurances. They had the education, the news and advertisements in their hand, and everybody was in the consuming business. When there was still something in the world to get, wars were started and justified, and the citizens went even as soldiers to die in those wars. Then I saw a pattern that was a red line throughout history, and it was a very simple trick. You think that you are smarter than someone, and you do something or create something that others don't have. Basically, you come up with something that you have and others not. They see this, or you make it known to them that this is the new thing that will make their life easier, better, and happier. And you show them by various means that they will be happier by having this. When they finally take the bite, you let them work for you. You even give them a credit card and loan, and they are in your circle of control. After they got used to having this new thing, you just have to put some fear in the game, making them afraid losing it, and they take you as a protection, and you buy them into getting an insurance. You give them security and comfort through a government, enhanced with religion, and then you keep them busy with education, making more money and spending it. You tax them for everything they work for and make extra on that, and to seal it all, you put a system around so you can play judge over everybody and every situation. The elite in the port of pleasures had everything in their power, from the governments, leaders, politicians, the bank, the producing industry, the medical industry, the insurances, and the education, and everybody had been tricked and was captured. When I found out that real money was set aside when I was born, that was to support me, but was used by them for their own gain, and that my parents had to pay taxes and other things that should have been for free, I really got angry because they had been separating us from the beginning. They had done this with everybody, and I felt disgusted by it all and started to get information from others who had come to the same conclusion, how to get out of the system, because it all had started with my birth certificate, which was like a bond, and I a part of the stock in the system. I had docked at their harbor and was given a name, received a permission to be in their system by getting my passport, and when this was done, all was set to happen, as I was in their system, which controlled everything. I had become part of their stock, which I figured out by getting familiar with the stock market. I realized that a free, healthy, self-caring, self-sufficient individual was of no use to the elite. One needed to be dependent, addicted, etc. Individuals were still lacking, they're still talking about free will and not realizing that all in their mind was completely programmed and controlled by endless man-manufactured programs. We were still talking about freedom, but we had given our voice to the politicians, our money to the bankers, our such-called protection to the jurisdiction system, our health to the medical and food industry, the education of our children to the schooling systems, fear and future in the hands of insurance companies, and last but not least, the soul within us to organize religion. More and more information I received, how to get out of the system by giving back my birth certificate and replacing it with an official document that had proof that I was me, but without a name. This was all legal, and I would be supported with free schooling, free electricity, free water, and much more. One needed to live away from the normal world, and to legally get this all going was a chore. And living without a passport brought other problems. Other information showed up while being on this new mission to free myself, and I had considered to step out of the system was not the real solution. The more I thought about it, the more I was confronted how in other ways I was not free. My body was dependent on endless needs and care, and I realized that my life around me, nature and the universe controlled me more than I ever could control it. I was busy with the same as the elite were busy with, control, and then it dawned on me. The entire conspiracy dated back to creating this myself-self within my own mind through desire, then going after that desire, then getting used and addicted or attached to it, enhancing it with associating emotions with it, then borrowing a strength to it by comparing my life with others and having a justification that I needed it or deserved it, then being afraid to lose it, and as a result, trying to ensure, control, hold on to it, and defending it to the extreme, standing ready to kill for it. I thought I was going out of my mind, realizing that I had given all my power to the mind. I was the bad guys. This all was based on a loneliness and emptiness within myself, and there I got stuck with my thinking and reasoning, but knew it had to do with separation. It felt that it was not my position to judge anyone in the port of pleasures because I learned about the law or guiding force of reflections and learned to use my mirror to reflect all back to me and saw all that what was done externally I did as well to myself, others and the world. It became also very clear to me when I stayed just externalizing everything, that I made myself and others into victims and victim of circumstances. I was a consumer of the pleasures of the mind. I was a controller and manipulator as I wanted things to go my way. I was a judge telling who was right and who was wrong and giving my opinion, which is a form of judgment. I was a killer by killing my own cells of my body with poor nutrition. I was a slave driver by pushing myself to the limit and causing my body stress. I was trying to save for the future and protecting all my possessions in various ways. I was a collector of waste inside my own body, the maker of pollution, and of course, I was a collector of worldly objects. I was the contributor of the consumer society because most things I had or had, I really didn't need, and as a result, being part of the destruction of Mother Nature. I didn't have the knowledge to really care about myself and give others the opportunity to play God with their profession. I was a slave driver as I never thought about how individuals were treated and under which conditions they had to work in the production, because I was part of that consuming as a consumer through buying produce and products and go on. I needed to get my priorities straight and my timing and spending of my energy clear in how I would spend my time and energy and realize that there were three kinds of people in this world. The first group was those always fighting and against everything and everybody and basically always on the run. The second group was about those who stayed in their position and it didn't really matter what situation it was, but they always complained. The third group, which was very small, was about those who accepted that they were the creator or Kandu in regards their circumstances, but who made the best out of each situation. I made my decision and chose for the last. I needed to work on my reflections and had to stop judging externally. I decided to simplify life voluntarily in all areas and to become less dependent and more self-sufficient, and learning more about taking care of my own health and less interfering with the destruction of the planet. And this all was in my power to reach. But one thing I could not find a solution for, because I realized that my mind was like a shopping center, a port of pleasures, and that was inside of me, awake, even while asleep. I was and had been the blind chauffeur behind the wheel on the deck of my sailboat, and I had no real solution, as this device, the mind, was stronger than I had imagined. I started my new life and lived from day to day, but dived into endless paths in order to find some control in the shopping center and in the port of pleasures of my mind. There I was again, seeking control, but it felt that this was possible. I went through becoming part of different religions, studied philosophy, astrology, visited psychics and card readers, and learned meditation techniques, but realized in the end that everything was based on concepts and descriptions, and that all of them were incomplete. Nobody had the complete picture, and I could not find real evidence of someone in the flesh that had succeeded. For years, I kept on battling with my mind and trying to find some solution or conclusion, but it was not something I could intellectually figure out. And at the same time, a deep longing came from within, but I couldn't place it. It was at that same moment in time a sailor showed up in my life who had docked in the port of pleasures, who went by the name Moriah Morrow, which sounded familiar, but couldn't recall anybody by that name. I observed him for a long time, and he was that what I was seeking. I couldn't put my finger on it, nor any words to it, but he was that reflection from within me who had succeeded, vibrated peace, never spoke ill about others, lived simple, and lived amongst us without losing himself or the balance he had. He was a guide of stranded drops of the eternal ocean of Kandu, and in the world of man called souls. He was also called as well a tug and navigator for the transparent, beautiful little underwater sailing boats that were ready to return home. It was also said that he was a messenger of Kandu, but he never claimed any of this during the meetings he held and which anybody could attend. He spoke about Kandu and the ocean of love, and that we were drops of that ocean, designed as transparent, beautiful little underwater sailing boats that had left to adventure Crystallia, but who had lost their direct contact with Kandu, and who had identified with their body boat the navigation device called the mind, and the harbors in Crystallia, the creation. Nothing sounded unfamiliar, although I had forgotten everything, but now it made sense that I never fitted in anywhere. That the freedom I was seeking was not to be found in Crystallia the creation, and that I was lost, stranded, alone, lonely, and separated from Kandu, and seeking the eternal and timeless ocean of love again. Like the separation phenomena that had taken place in the realm of man by leaving the land and nature's support, and who ended up living in separation in families, separated countries and nations, it was the blueprint of the drops separating themselves from the ocean and then identifying themselves with the mind and being controlled by the sense organs and conditioning. And it was that separation that was the origin of all pain and trouble. It was about that pain and feeling lost and lonely that we all had fallen for the pleasures of the world, or port so to speak, which was a reflection of playing in the shopping center of the mind, to just keep us busy and quiet and not to remember. The only way out was to attach the mind to something that was not from the creation, the world of mind and matter. Detachment and seeking freedom in the creation was not possible. One night I had a vision in which I realized that I had been the creator of my physical world, and which was the result of all my dreams, wishes, and doing. All was a reaction, and reactions of actions in thought, word, and deed that I had had since I had left the ocean and entered Causalia, the world of cause and effect. Then I realized that I had wanted to be in the port of pleasures, in which time and thus reactions were almost instant. In a way it was, as time, compared with Urania, was 1,000 to 10,000 times faster, and compared with Causalia, 10,000 to 100 times faster. No wonder that everything was in this consumer world consuming oneself, others and the world, which by the way was on the edge of destroying, or in other words consuming itself. Me, I had been consumed by my desires. I had been consumed by playing with the mind, but now I was looking for a way to get out, looking to slow it all down. Morai explained that being in the port of pleasures, the world of the physical man, was the biggest time trap in which one could be, but that as well offered the fastest way out again, for time was the fastest in this realm as well. I had sailed away to find the realm of the physical man, and remembered that during all these travels I had added more dreams and images to my original dream. I had been really wrong regarding my end destination, that special place that would be ruled by strong physical men, whatever they would be and look like, and keeping everybody under the control, so individuals would not be able to do the things I had seen on my way. It all had been the exact opposite of my dream, because the port of pleasures was all about control, and which had become a world in which individuals were completely and totally controlled. My dreams had come through, but they had just turned out a little different than I had expected. And I should have known this, because everything was bound to laws in the world away from the ocean of love, and all the information got mixed up in my mind and a world that I had created. I had docked my boat, and on top of it all, I had come without a map or manual or forgotten about it, and this as well became part of my new life adventure. I realized that this entire society had gotten or lost the basics of life, or better said, it had lost consciousness. Everybody was just under human rules and regulations, and everything was geared to human skills and education, basically limited and conditioned programs in regards to getting a profession and to work and consume. Many other individuals I had seen trying to integrate the thought that there was a creator, and they tried to implement religious and spiritual teachings, but they were unable to make it really practical in their life. I had seen many individuals later in their life trying to fit in some health and fitness programs because their health was failing, but it all was almost impossible because there was just no time, and everybody was either sick or didn't have the energy to keep things up. The basics of life, which had been knowledge individuals had when they were living in and with nature, had been replaced with the education of worldly skills, professions and work. I talked with Mariah Morrow about this fact, and he gave me two options regarding this dilemma. He told me to find teachers that still had this information, but he warned me that not any of them would know it all, and that it would take time to gather all this lost and forgotten information. The other solution was to follow his instructions of a meditation technique that would assist me to find out who I really was, where I came from, but as well how to live in the world of man by receiving the information regarding the basics of life from within myself. He pointed out that all information was within the mind regarding the creation, and that the mind, which had been used for worldly desire, now needed to be used for simple and harmonious living, and to rise above the mind itself, to discover who I really was and where I came from. It all sounded great, but I was confronted with another dilemma, which had been following me my entire life: submitting to a teacher. This time it was different because Morai told me that all that I was seeking was already within me, and he didn't came over as an authority, but lived a life being an example. When I mentioned that I struggled with my teachers in the past, he made a good point that they had been there, providing just the circumstances, irrespectively of their ego, and that I had through this been able to pull that what I had learned from within myself. It was a fact that I had needed teachers for everything in this world, and how arrogant could I be to not see this, that for this new voyage that I really needed all the help I could get. I needed the help of someone who had done the travels and discoveries before me. I was even happier about the fact that Morai even told me not to believe him, but that I needed to go the journey and prove it all to myself. Sometime later I asked Morai to be my teacher and guide, or in other words, my tug and navigator. He initiated me in an inner science and told me a meditation technique which was called dying while living, meaning I had to consciously let go of the world I was in, leaving all behind and having no wish other than to return home in my mind. I had to leave this physical and material sailboat behind, for I could sail through the inner regions as they were of a thinner and less material substance. That was not a problem to leave this human boat behind, for all of the boats in the port of pleasures came and went. During meditation, using the mind with the repetition of a set of names that seemingly navigated me through the inner regions, I had to pass back through, and at the same time they were passwords to get from one to the next. I was to focus on the currents of everlasting light and everlasting sound that came from the ocean of love, and who were connected to everything and to the real me inside of me. And this was my new direction and navigation that would lead me back to discover who I really was and where my real home was. When I sat for meditation, I visualized myself being in a boat, standing behind the wheel, but listening to the direction which Morai gave me. Remember, I had been the blind chauffeur or captain, so to speak, and had gotten lost and stranded. Morai was not behind the wheel, he was in the crow's nest, because he was much more familiar with these worlds and especially traveling in the darkness, because that was the first part of the journey. Often sitting in meditation, it felt that I had been traveling for days and weeks, but returning only minutes had passed in the time reality where I was. Morai had as well explained to me that the inner worlds to come were brighter and brighter, and that I needed to get familiar with that kind of intense light again. So listening to the everlasting internal sound, we sailed in the right direction. Finally, I saw the light in the end of the channel, and we ended up in the ocean of Orania. And I was glad that I had my navigator with me, because I also could have ended up somewhere staying on these inner worlds, which, by the way, were much more attractive than I had remembered. And then also realizing that I could get trapped there for thousands to 100,000 of years in these realms, as the clock of time was going slower. Each time, after meditation, I returned back to the life I had in Eternia and accepted my destiny, a reality I had created by myself, and took full responsibility for this. I realized that life in the port of pleasures was an illusion in which I played many roles in many different ways, and that everybody and everything was a reflection of myself, a lost and confused sailor, and that one day I would have to leave the port, and that even one day the port would disappear again. More and more, I became more the observer of my own play, and assisted there where I could, without getting too deeply involved, because each time I got too involved, and especially emotionally, I had no means to assist myself or anyone else for that fact. I had to become the best sailor I could be, and through meditating, staying aware that everything in the port of pleasures was all unreal. I could not change the world, and was not able to rescue others, but could less interfere with everything and everybody by just doing the best to my abilities in order to not have any excuses. Every day I traveled in and up, leaving my physical body boat behind, using the mind for a higher purpose, and waiting that one day I could return this navigation device back to Kalimobanko. Often sailing inside, I felt I left the wheel and was standing next to Morai in the crow's nest and just observing it all, just like I learned to do in the world of the physical man, the port of pleasures. On several of my inner journeys, I did visit the keepers of the seven dimensions and the guardians of universal nature, who represented all the elements and laws, and through which I figured out where everything functioned in the world of mind and matter. And by this means, I got my manual back. I got my manual back together, which I had lost or forgotten. These keepers and guardians were those I had encountered in the past in the high realms of the gods, but this time they were helping me. All of them were part of Kalimabanko's team, and their task was to keep Crystallia the creation functioning and going. My task, in addition, knowing more about this manual and the basics of life, and living in a more harmoniously, I was to stay focused on my real birthright, as Morai put it, to find out who I really was and where I really belonged. I was now on a voyage to find my real, true, and everlasting self, and ended up in the Crystal Mountains, located in the Upper Crystal Kingdom, right between the waiting and preparation realm, a place where Moria Moro lived as a resting place between the ocean of love and the physical planes. I ended up in the preparation realm, where my training had begun after I had left the ocean of love, and this time it was training me to return home again. In the waiting realm, in which I ended up much later, I merged with my teacher, master and guide, and became finally one with him. He, the tug, and I, the lost sailing boat. Then I realized that I had arrived in the physical realm with the help of a human body, my Earth Mother, and that I also left again inside a human body with the help of a human body, my master, Moria Moro. But inside, they always had been sailing boats, out on a journey, discovering new places, but now returning home after a long journey. What the story could bring us. We all think, being in this world, that we have rights, but these rights are man-made and can be given and taken as it suits mankind. The real and only one right that is for everyone is our birthright, which is the beginning of a real adventure, and doing this in a human body to discover who we really are and where we came from. This adventure is the only worthwhile adventure, for it will bring us back to the everlasting, the God, the ocean, or any name given to that which is beyond form and name. All other adventures are part of the mortal world and even binding us to that world. We need teachers for everything in life, and we need especially a teacher, a guide, a tug, a navigator to go this spiritual journey. This is so clear, realizing that we are attached and trapped within this mind, which is our prison, and that we need all the help we can get to conquer it.